Well, the buzzword right now around Trenton is the budget, what'll stay and what'll go as public hearings begin to finalize the numbers. But the state's facing a $3 billion structural deficit, and that's put some programs on the chopping block. One of the key lawmakers involved in the budget negotiations is Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, who joins us now as part of our Under the Dome series. Assembly Speaker, thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Joanne, it's great to be here. Thank you.
So the governor laid out her budget. One of the first things we heard was that she does, in fact, plan to roll back the funds for Stay NJ. That's a program that you championed. It's a senior property tax freeze program, senior property tax rebate program. What are your thoughts about her cutting spending there?
Well, I think Stay is critically important, and I think the governor recognizes that, which was because she has proposed some modifications to that, and we're going to go through the process of what we do every year when we get to the budget. I think it's important that we continue to stick up for working middle-class folks, for seniors who we want to stay here in the state of New Jersey, and it's been wildly well received. You need only ask anybody's district office how it's been received by senior citizens, and I think it's an impactful and perhaps transformative program, because when people start to think about New Jersey in a different way, they'll make different decisions about where they're going to retire to. We want people to stay in the state of New Jersey.
Why is that critical to keep them here?
But first and foremost, for that, first of all, they're people who help build the communities that they live in. They generally love them. They want to be near the people that they care about, right? So senior citizens play an important role. Go to any kind of historical society, go to street fairs, go to all of the things that make a community feel special about itself, and you'll see seniors involved, generally in a volunteer way. And by the way, don't underestimate their important role in child care. They make an enormously positive impact on caring for their grandkids.
Do you generally agree that changing the eligibility requirements to save the state money is moving in the right direction?
Well, I set the limit at $500,000, or we set the limit. Remember, it's the law. This isn't. It has been passed by both houses of the legislature, signed by Governor Murphy, and the reason for that was to try to include as many seniors as we can.
This cuts it in half. Her proposal.
Well, it cuts the
eligibility requirement.
The eligibility dollar amount in half.
250,000 earners up to 250,000.
Right. That wouldn't cut the number of people who receive it in half. But look, it's something that we're going to look at in the course of the budget review process. Understand what the budget really is. I mean, it gets. I think people oftentimes underappreciate the role of the legislature in this process. There's a constitutional process. Governor proposes a budget, and then it becomes the product of the legislature, and that's what we've begun. As you said in the lead, we've already begun the budget hearings. One public session's already occurred. There's more to come, and then we'll talk to the department heads and go about crafting the budget. And it's important to do that because the Constitution says to us, take a look at this. This is, there's two houses. It's a checks and balance system, right? The governor doesn't give it to us to check the math and say if it's okay when he give it back. It's so that the legislature can weigh in on what it thinks is important to the people of New Jersey.
Do you think, as the head of one of the chambers of the legislature, that Christmas tree items are as big a problem as the governor has said they are? She says she wants to eliminate this in the process.
Well, I think that the governor talked about adding things and having to find ways of reducing other costs in the budget, right, or cutting things.
And these tend to be the backroom deals, right?
They're not backroom deals. That's a preposterous notion.
Okay. How do you see it?
I see them as investments in communities. No one knows the districts better than the legislators who serve it. We live in those districts. We spend enormous amounts of time. We routinely consult with mayors and councils and legislative leaders and people within the district. Governor can't possibly do that, right? Because she has responsibility for all 21 counties and all 40 districts. So we know what is most important to the towns. And the notion that these things are Christmas trees or wasteful spending is just ridiculous, frankly. Look at the things that we've invested in. Last year, for example, $120 million was restored. Governor Murphy had cut it. We restored it so that kids, for higher ed, and both at four-year colleges and at community colleges, they would call that a Christmas tree. Well, ask the people whose kids are now able to go to school because they weren't going to be able to afford it if they think it was wasteful spending. Talk about people who are brain injured. Talk about people who are developmentally disabled, and now there's a little bit more so that we can have more for the people who serve them. Talk about all of the things that go into helping a community. Those are investments in the community, in the progress, in the future of the state.
So how do you do all that, Assembly Speaker, and still keep a balanced budget when we're already looking at a significant structural deficit somewhere between $3 to $4 billion as the numbers lay out?
Right. So I think what we do, and the evidence is that we have done, one of the things we do is probably without much notice last year, we cut $400 million out of the budget. The year before that, it was $5 million. So, I mean, we're constantly evaluating what goes in and what goes out of the budget, and the governor has recognized that there's probably reasons to add in. That's why I think she said that you want to add something, we got to find something to take out. So I think that we'll work with her on that, trying to find things that we can reduce. Remember, too, there's a process to all of this. For example, our revenue numbers won't be certain until May and sometime, right? Because April 15th is tax return day, right? Big piece of the revenue the state gets.
Yeah, you find out what came in.
Yeah, exactly right. And other costs will come up along the way. State health benefit plan, for example, we'll know the numbers for that as we get later. So that would be a cost. So that's why it's a fluid document, really, until we pass it sometime in June.
Very quickly, we did see a package of immigration bills, pretty controversial, moved to the governor's desk. They took a while to get there. Why do you believe those are right for New Jersey? I
think they're right for the people of New Jersey. I mean, we have seen. First of all, it speaks to who we are, right? We celebrate our diversity here in the state of New Jersey, one of our greatest strengths to do that. But the impact that it has had, the chilling impact on people, whether they're American citizens or whether they're immigrants, has been profound. People are afraid to go send their children to school for fear that they'll come home to parents who aren't there. We've seen it. One of the things I do, one of the cornerstones, Joanna, has been the fight against food insecurity. I regularly talk to food banks and food pantries. They're seeing a decline in people wanting to come to get the food that they need.
Forward.
Yeah, same thing at going to hospitals or doctors, all those things. So I think some of those bills are designed to do that. We codified the Attorney General's directive, so that became law, not just a directive. We tried to build trust between the police and the citizenry forever. Police officers and even military people have worn identification. ICE isn't doing that. They're covering their faces. They're wearing nondescript things. That is a safety issue, certainly relative to police. When they see somebody being grabbed, they don't know whether they're ICE agents or not. And certainly it's terrifying for people.
Yeah. There's a Republican assemblyman who filed an ethics complaint against Assemblywoman Katie Brennan. She proposed a package of bills that are titled F-ICE. Does this break the decorum of your chamber?
Well, look, I think there's some real raw emotion over these issues around immigrations and other things. I think that was manifested in the legislature that came out. We're going to consider all of those things in totality.
Would you require a rewrite of the name of those bills?
I think the Assembly members, senators, get to draft their bills as they see fit.
And you leave it there. All right, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, thank you.
Thank you.
Under the Dome is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.